Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Irvington High School PTSA Cybersecurity Awareness Session. My name is Youngpei Choi, and I'm the VP of Programs. And I want to thank all of you for attending, as well as also thank our two guest speakers today. And let me share screen to introduce them, and then we will start. Where's the Okay, where's my stuff? Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, there are some issues that I believe our guest speakers may probably be covering tonight that affect our kids regarding cybersecurity, ransomware, cyberbullying, identity theft, phishing, online predator, gambling, sexting. Okay, and then here are our two speakers tonight, not in any particular order. We have Chung Wu, who is a veteran in the enterprise software industry with a focus on big data analytics and cybersecurity. He's held product management leadership roles at Siebel Systems, Oracle, Guidewire, and Sumo Logic. He has a computer science degree from UC Irvine, a business degree from Northwestern University, and he also is a parent of a FUSD graduate. And then we have Mr. Raghu Arhol, who's IT head of enterprise systems at Genesis Cloud. He has a chief information officer certificate from Carnegie Mellon University and got executive education training from UC Berkeley Haas School of Business and a Bachelor of Engineering from India. And he is a parent of a current Irvington student. So now we'll, oops, wrong one, stop sharing. Now I will allow one of the speakers, whoever wants to go first, to go ahead and share your screen. And I believe maybe both of you will each have about 15, 20 minutes to speak, because then we want to leave some time for a question and answer afterwards.
Sure.
So whoever want to go first can go, and I'll just pin you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lindsay. So I will go through it first, and Chung, will later, and we will have a Q&A session in the end. All right. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. So today we are going to talk about the cybersecurity awareness and how it is relevant for the high school students and their parents. Since I already get introduced, I'm not going to this slide again. Primarily, I'm going to talk about the introduction, why the cybersecurity awareness is important, and what are some of these common, the cybersecurity threats impacting the students and the younger population, some of the do's and don'ts, the best practices, and some of the helpful links. Most of our time we're going to spend on the common threats and some of the best practices and the do and the don'ts in today's session. And if you're interested, if you need more details, we can go through in the additional information and the link. To start with, why the cybersecurity awareness? Why it is so important for the students and the parents, right? It is very important to know. The first and foremost thing, so there is hundreds of statistics about the the cybersecurity, I picked the top three, right? Why this topic is more relevant for the students, why this topic is more relevant for our parents. The first and foremost thing is there are 800,000 cybersecurity attacks per year, which is just in the United States. So what does this mean? Is every 39 seconds, so there is a hacker attack. So just before our session started and now, probably already 15 to 20 times the cyber attack it happened some part of the United States. So that is how severe it is. The other key data point is there is 7 hours 22 minutes per day. So that is the time daily average American teen spends on the screen. So what does this mean? Pretty much half of the day, if you take the 8 hours is for the sleep, out of 16 hours, pretty much half of the time our teens are spending on the screens. I'm not again blaming, I'm not pointing the fingers. So that is the time we are spending on the screen. That is the time in which potentially there might be a cyber attack. Right? So that tells the gravity of the situation. So the other key data point here is there's a 1 million students sensitive data was exposed due to the cyber attack last year. So this is the 2022 data. So there is a 1 million data. A significant amount of data is impacted. So that is the reason this topic is more relevant. So this topic is why we are discussing this. So now let's quickly go through some of the common cybersecurity threats, which is impacting. So give me 1 minute here. So my screen is blocked. Okay. So let's go through some of these common cybersecurity threats impacting the students and the younger population. The common one is the identity theft, is one of the most common, where someone uses the other person's financial or the personal data. The second one is the internet fraud. So any type of fraud or the scam using the internet or the digital devices, which is impacting pretty much everybody who is going through the digital transactions. So the virus and malwares is the another important threat. Then lastly is cyberbullying, where they harass a person using the internet and digital device as a tool. So let's quickly go through what each one of these, and let's see some of the examples for each of these. Probably you might have already know this. So the identity theft is basically when someone uses the another person's financial or the personal data for the monetary gain. The fraudsters are steal your sensitive information like your name, the birth date, the social security number, the driver's license details, address, and the bank accounts and the credit card numbers. So just to give you an example, data point, the first half of 2023, so that's this year's data, the Americans reported nearly 560,000 cases of identity theft nationwide, according to the Federal Trade Commission. So this is one of the very common the cybersecurity threat or the attack. So when we are doing the digital transactions, or when we are browsing the web, or when we are going through some of the transactions. So we will talk about now how do we kind of prevent this in subsequent slides, but just to give you data points and one of the common reason in the cyber attack is the identity theft. The second one is the internet frauds. In this case, any type of the fraud schemes, they are using the emails or the websites or the chat rooms or the message boards to present the fraudulent solicitation to the prospective victims. So basically to do the fraudulent transactions. So they are using the variety of ways to commit the internet frauds. You might have already heard about the online dating scams, or the lottery money claim scams, or the free gift, gift card scams, employment scams for the job seekers, doubling your money, online investment frauds. There's a variety of ways these hackers and these scammers are trying to, phishing to get the data, or basically to scam the people. To give you another data point here, so the Americans lost 10.3 billion to the internet scam in 2022, according to the FBI data. Again, we will go through this. How do we kind of prevent this? What are some of these best practices to avoid the internet scams in the subsequent slides? The third one is the virus and the malware attack. So this is this is a little bit technical here. So basically the malware attack is basically a malicious software. So the malicious software executes an unauthorized actions or damage to the victim systems. So without even you are aware of it, your transaction is happening in your system. So that's where basically the virus and the malware attack is. So the type of malware attacks can be a virus, it can be a ransomware, it can be a scareware, worms, spyware, trojans, adwares. There's a variety of ways in which these are attacking. Again, one more data point here. As per the 2023 the cyber threat report, so this is malware is surging 5.5 billion attacks. Not the million, it's a 5.5 billion attack, and which is increasing, especially after the COVID. So this scam and these malware attacks are significantly increased in the last 2 to 3 years. So the last one, which is more relevant from our students' perspective, is cyberbullying. Probably you might have already know what the cyberbullying is, but just to reiterate here, so basically they are using the technology and the digital device to harass or threaten or embarrass or target a particular person. So that's what the cyberbullying is about. It can occur through the SMS, text, or the apps, or the social media forums, or the gaming. So basically, it includes the sharing the personals or the private information about someone else, causing a humiliation to the other person. Please do not take this lightly. Cyberbullying is unlawful. It is a criminal behavior. Again, another statistic here, nearly half, around 46% of the teens between age of 13 to 16 have been bullied and harassed online, according to the Pew Research 2022. So these are some of the common cyber security threat. It can be cyberbullying, or it can be the online scams, right, or the malware attack. So before getting into some of this best practice, how do we kind of go about it? So just open it up to see, are there any comments or any questions from anyone? Okay, if there is no questions, so now let's talk about some of these do's and don'ts, some of these tips and tricks for the safe, secure digital transactions and the internet surfing. So the internet and the cyber is integral part of our life. Be a student or be housewife or be working in the office. It is a part of our life. We can't explore this. We can't say, right, hey, I'm not going to surf the internet. I'm not going to do the web transaction. So just to avoid the cyber attack. We can't tell that. This is a part of our life. Now, when you get up in the morning, you will start with a digital device. When you sleep, before sleeping, we are using our digital device. Even the whole day, throughout the day, we have to use the digital devices for the one thing or the other. So we can't avoid it. But now the question is, how do we do this safely? How do we do this securely? So there are some tips and tricks. That's what we are going to talk about in the subsequent slides. So the first and foremost thing, the number one way to avoid or to prevent the cyber attacks is the strong password. The strong password and the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, is the one of the best options to protect from the cyber attacks. It looks simple, but believe me, so this is the number one way where you can avoid or prevent the cyber attacks. Think of so you have a very beautiful home, you have all the expensive stuffs in the home, but you have not locked your home, or you don't have a good security system to protect your home. So what happens? So you are inviting the bad guys to attack, bad guys to invade your home, or bad guys to scam you. So this is exactly same as having the poor password or the not so strong password. So some of the best practice here. So have a unique, strong password. And password should be long enough, and it should be complex. It should be a combination of uppercase, lowercase, letters, numbers, and special characters. Some of the don'ts: do not use the password that is easily guessable, like 0 1 2 3 4 5, or ABCDE, or your birthday, or the password as a password. Please don't do this, right? So this is a very easy way where we can address this. By doing this, you significantly reduces the potential cyber attacks. And some of the tips and tricks here: plan to change your password every 90 days, and some people do every 180 days. But the point is, frequently change your password. The password is not for the lifelong, so you have to change, frequently. The multi-factor authentication. So this is becoming very prominent now. If you don't know what that means is, for example, right, if you are logging to your banking portal, or you're going to the banking website, so the one way is you go to your user ID and you put your password. So if you enable the multi-factor authentication, it will send you a code either through your phone or through your email. So that is a second set of eyes to log into your system. So this will double ensures the safety of your digital space. So try to use my suggestion is, try to use the multi-factor authentication for all your very critical transactions or the financial transaction, whether it's a bank account or insurance or any of your critical accounts. Try to use the multi-factor authentication. The third one, which is, in my opinion, one of the best way to have the password is the using the password manager. I don't know whether you know about this. The password manager is a service provided by many companies. There is a misconception that what happens if the password manager is site was hijacked or site was hacked. Nothing will happen to you. The reason is the password manager, so they are going to encrypt and decrypt your password. They don't know your password. So the one of the best way, if you really wanted to ensure, and if you wanted to maintain hundreds of passwords, whether it is your bank account or whether your Gmail or whether your PG&E account or your water bill, there is hundreds of accounts you have to keep track of. It is very difficult to remember, and please don't write it in your diary or somewhere else. Those are not safe. So probably think of using the password manager to take care of this particular issue. Again, by the way, if there is any comment or if there is any question, feel free to raise. Please ask that question, so that way either me or Ching will be able to answer those questions. So the next one is, how do we kind of address this identity theft? So one of the easiest way to address the identity theft is, so be mindful what you write or what you share in the web. So this is very particularly important for the student community, because we have a habit of just randomly write, but if you write it, it goes as a record in the someone else server, and they can take the screenshot of it. Even though you delete from your account, someone might have already taken a screenshot of it. Someone might have already taken the backup of it, right? So it will be there forever. So be mindful about what you write and what you share in the web. Will significantly reduces the cyber threats. One of the do's here is browse and interact only the secured website. So how do we know whether it is a secure website or not? The one which starts with HTTPS. If it starts with the HTTP, please do not browse that website, or please do not write or edit anything in that website. It's probably it is a site to capture your personal data. And the other important thing is just mostly from the student's perspective. So what happens is you have to do a lot of research for your essays or for your presentations. Many websites are not necessarily authentic. That might be somebody's opinion. That is not the real fact. So that is where you have to do little research. Maybe you need to talk to your teacher or a parent or your librarian to know exactly which is the safe and accurate website for your research. Do not just randomly use the website. So there is a lot of copyright rules potentially get violated, and it might be incorrect data. It may be a hidden agenda someone else is kind of going through. So it is very important to find out the safe and the accurate website for your research. And some of the don'ts here, please don't share your personal information in the website and the social media. This is very important. Don't post the inappropriate or sexually provocative pictures or the comments, and do not respond to the inappropriate requests. Again, as I mentioned already, you should know about the copyright laws, which one to take and which one not to take for your essays or your for research, which is most important. Otherwise, you will end up in a trouble. The second tip is when you use the public computer, you might go to the library and you might use their computer there. Make sure to log out of your account and close your browsing session, web browser.
Honestly, I think it's time for us to break up. I just don't love you, and your best friend's hotter than you.
Hello. Okay. Is there a question?
No, I think it was just someone who's unmuted, but they're muted now.
Okay. All right. Now the next one is, how do we prevent the cyber frauds or the scams? The easiest way and the quickest way to prevent the cyber fraud and scam, educated yourself, be aware and be educated yourself, mindful about the common phishing scams. If you are educated about this, the chances of the cyber threat, the chances of the cyber attack will significantly reduce. So this is not a rocket science, but you have to be aware and be educated on this. You might receive an email, looks like your friends, claiming the lottery money, contest winner, inheritance emails, online romance, text message. Be mindful, be aware of this. There is some hidden agenda. Someone wants to trap you, or someone wanted to, scam you. Be mindful about it. So this is one of the best way to kind of prevent the cyber frauds and the scams. And some of the, the don'ts here: do not click on the unsolicited email messages and the attachment. So this is very important. So the many times, at least the 99% of the time, the malwares or the attack happens by clicking the attachment. So do not simply randomly, click the attachment, any unsolicited email. And this is mostly, I have seen most of the people do this. If you do not stream the unknown website, right? You think, it's a free, but if you stream from the unknown website, there's a, I can guarantee you, there is a malware. And next one is they do not download any apps instantly. If you wanted to download apps, just take a breath, review it, get the feedback, and then you do. Sky is not going to fall by delaying 1 minute or the 2 minutes. By just spending 1 minute or 2 minutes, so you are going to save yourself from the cyber attacks. And do not send the money or provide any credit card details or the online account details or your personal document to anyone you don't know or you don't trust. So one of the tips is, your privacy and the security settings on the social media, which is very important. Sometimes, we ignore this, but this is very important. So when you log into your social media account, make sure, you are aware of those privacy settings. So whether is a public or whether it is only for within your group or it is just a private, you should know what it is, and appropriately, depending on your comfort level, you should set that accordingly. So do not keep everything to the public open in one go. So you whatever is comfortable for you, so you have to do that setting, and you have to periodically review this setting, which is very important. And the second one, especially from the malware and the virus perspective, so you make sure your PC, laptop, your phone have the latest software versions and the antivirus software, which will significantly reduce these attacks from the phishing or whether it is malware attacks. Lastly, the cyberbullying. Let's talk about some of these do's, don'ts, and the tips how to deal with the cyberbullying. The first and foremost is the block the bully immediately. So pretty much all the devices have that setting to block the bullies from sending the notes to you. Then the very another very important thing in case of the cyberbullying is tell an adult you trust. What you are, when you are experiencing this cyberbullying. So this can be your parents or your family members or a trusted teacher or a school counselor. Please do not keep quiet, right? Please tell what you are, experiencing the cyberbullying to an adult. In terms of, what you're not supposed to do, do not respond, and do not forward this cyberbullying message. I know, you will be in an urge to retaliate, but please do not retaliate. Resist that urge to retaliate or the respond to the cyberbullies. And this is another very important thing to prevent from the cyberbullying. Do not join any unknown chat rooms or unknown online gaming rooms or the social media groups. The key tip here is, report the cyberbullying to your school and the law enforcement. This is very, very important. Otherwise, it is not just you. There are many other kids will be impacted by the cyberbullying. The second one, I said, the block the bully, but at the same time, you keep the evidences of the cyberbullying. Record the dates, the timestamps. If you have some screenshots of the description, if you can keep that evidence, it will be very helpful for your school and for the law enforcement officers to identify that bullies and take appropriate action instead of they are going through the other thing. So this will kind of end my session on what kind of things you can take care to avoid or prevent the cyber attacks. So now, in spite of all these things, right, if it happens to you, what should you do? So how should you report the cybercrime? So this is what you need to do, if you are impacted by the cybercrime. The first and foremost thing, you have to report to your school or the workforce IT department, depending on where it started or where it's impacted. The next one is you also need to report this to your local law enforcement agency, it's the police department or the sheriff's office. That way they will do the appropriate actions against these scams. The third one, which is mostly, most of the people will ignore this, but this is very, very important. So along with, reporting to the local law enforcement agency, you also need to file at the Internet Crime Compliance Center. It is called IC3. I have sent the link here. It is just an online, you can go there and you can put your complaint there. So this is very, very important because most of the scams, even though you report it to your local enforcement agency, they can't do anything because most of the times it is done by someone outside of this country or someone outside of this state. It needs the variety of agencies to work together to track these bad actors. So if you go and report it here, IC3, the FBI and the Department of Justice and various other teams will be involved, and they will do the detailed investigation, and they will, address this issue along with the coordination from the different law enforcement agencies. So this is more, very important to report it here along with reporting to your local enforcement. And lastly, if it is related to the malicious message or the spam or the suspicious email, you can also report this to the email provider on that website. So the most of the website and the most of the providers, so they have, a section for reporting these kind of things. Please again, do not ignore this. So the first step to bring, this culprit is to report against this. Otherwise, they will be doing this more and more, and it's harming more and more people. So you can go to their website, go to each of these website, and they have a specific section to report this. You have to go and report it, and they will do the investigation, and they will take the appropriate actions. So this will kind of end of my session. If you need the more details, you can always go through this, helpful websites. So you can go through this, or if there is any question, please feel free to raise it now. I will be able to, Archim will be able to address your question. So with that, I will hand it over to Archim to go through his section.
Before I start, is any questions for Raghu that we want to mention we want to answer right now? Okay, well, I'm going to start my session and then we can do more Q&A at the end. So we just, okay, let me share my screen. Desktop one. So we just heard many good examples of potential cybersecurity risks and approaches to mitigate those risks. Cybersecurity is a huge problem. We are hearing all kinds of attacks that happens on a weekly, if not daily basis. In fact, it's almost, if we don't hear of, it's almost no longer news if there's a cybersecurity attack that happens. What would be news is there's no cybersecurity attack. So we all need to be very vigilant. And what we just talked about are a number of examples, right, mitigation techniques. And what I'm going to do is to take a step back, because the challenge with defending against cybersecurity threat is that there are so many different kinds of attacks, and the risk landscape is evolving. The bad actors keep coming up with new ideas for stealing people's data, money, identity, you name it. And in order to defend against those, that we also need to think about cybersecurity protection from a bit of a conceptual perspective, right? So that you can evolve your thinking and the specific measures that you take to defend yourself. So to start off, that when we talk about cybersecurity, that they basically, we need to look at two specific areas. The first thing that you need to do to protect yourself is to understand your risk, okay? And then the second part is, once you understand your risk, then you can take specific measures in order to protect yourself. So to understand your risk, that's called risk assessment. You're systematically evaluating what are your exposures, what are your vulnerabilities that you face, so that you can take the appropriate countermeasures to protect yourself. And then the risk mitigations are the countermeasures that you take based on your specific risk profile. Okay, so conceptually, these are the two things that I'm going to talk about, and I'll provide some examples of what each of these means. Now, for risk assessment, okay, it's about understanding the risk that you face. And to do that, the first thing that you have to think about is, well, why would anyone bother to attack you? Why would they want to do that, right? What's in it for them? And oftentimes, well, when we start first having cybersecurity problem, it was several decades ago. And in the early days, the hackers were a lot more benign. They were doing it, they were hacking into systems, in many cases because of technical curiosity. In some cases, they just did it just for the fun of it. In other cases, they want to know how systems work. And that was the original or the origin for hacking. Nowadays, that most of hackings are not done just for fun. They're done for economic reasons. Now, they're done to steal money, okay? So one of the key reasons why you might be attacked is that people want to steal your money. And the more money that you have, the more likely that criminals will want to go after you. Okay, and now you may say, okay, I'm just a student. Okay, I'm still young. I don't have any money, so I don't need to worry about it, right? Well, maybe. Okay, so why might people still be interested in attacking you is they may want to steal your data, or maybe they want to steal your personal identity. Why is that? Well, if they have your personal identity, such as social security number, your birthday, your name, your address, your phone number, the so-called personally identified information, PII, they can actually use that information to commit other crimes. They can use it to open up, say, bank accounts or get loans and so forth and so on, right? If they fake your identity. So that would be another reason why they may want to attack you. In other cases, that they may want to attack you, they may want to infect your computer because they want to take over it and use that as a launching point for attacks to other systems and other people so that they can make money that way, right? So even though you may not have money, that you may still have something valuable to offer to the criminal, and you need to consider those possibilities. Yet another reasons why someone may want to attack you is they just have malicious intent, and maybe someone doesn't like you and want to ruin your reputation, right? That would be another example of why someone might want to attack you. So the first step in protecting yourself is to evaluate the risk that you may face. And that can vary a bit, depending on your personal situation. So you have to first understand the kind of circumstance that you may have, and then be creative, because that the criminals are getting very crafty these days, and they may come up with all kinds of ways to take advantage of you. And one way that you can also learn about how you may get attacked is by reading. You're reading up on news, reading about articles, and that will give you some examples. And from that you can then brainstorm and think about the scenarios that you face and the risks that you may face. Now, the second part of risk assessment is to think about your vulnerabilities. How can the criminals get to you? Okay. And on the slide, examples of some of the means. These days, a lot of the attacks are carried out through email, specifically phishing email. It can also be carried out via instant messengers, whether it's Facebook, whether it's WeChat, WhatsApp, Telegram, you name it. And don't forget the good old-fashioned SMS text messaging that still works. And a lot of criminals, because of the universality of SMS, is still a very preferred means of reaching potential victims. Social media, that's another area of risk. Okay? People may go onto your social media profile to case you, especially if you share a lot of information on your profile. Right? They may find out the school that you go to, the place that you hang out, whether you're home, if you happen to post about the vacation trip that you're on. So you have to be very judicious when it comes to your social media presence. Okay, so that's another potential point of vulnerability. Your computing devices, whether it is your personal computers, whether it's your smartphones, that's another avenue in which hackers and criminals can go after you. And last but not least, as an example, that when we think about cybersecurity, oftentimes people focus on the digital domains, right? We just talk about a couple of those: computers, smartphones, email, social media, and so on. Well, one thing about cybersecurity is that you cannot have cybersecurity without physical security. Okay, and to give you an example, one of the customers that I worked with in the past has worries a lot about protecting the digital systems. Okay, so they have all kinds of measures that they put in, from firewall to strong password authentications to intrusion detection systems, you name it. They think about those things. Well, there was only one problem, that the office has really relaxed security protocol, that practically anyone can just walk right into the office without even checking in with the front desk. So imagine, right, you are a cyber criminal and you want to hack into the network. You don't need to try to go in from over the network and try to get around the firewall. All you have to do is show up at the office, walk right in, and go into one of the conference rooms or even one of the workstations and pretend that you're one of the employees, plug your machines right in, and you'll be right there in the network. Okay, so that's a case where they think so much about protecting on the digital side, where they completely forget about the physical measures. You cannot have cybersecurity without physical security. So think about when you go out and you have your computers with you, right? You can be at a library, you can be at school, or maybe you are going with your family on a trip. And think about that, how good to protect your devices, even when they're traveling with you in your car, right? Or your home, that make sure you have protective measures so that even if you get burglarized, that somehow you still are able to protect the data and critical information such as your personal identity. Now, let me give an example of how an attack may work. Okay, so in this case, one of the most common means of attacking a victim is by sending phishing messages. And those messages, as I mentioned earlier, can come through via email, can be instant messengers, and so on. In general, they will try to make the message as authentic as possible. And the real problem these days is that because of artificial intelligence, specifically technologies such as OpenAI, thus it's increasingly possible for criminals to create messages that look very real. And what we also worry about is going forward, they can even fake people's voice or video, right? And then it becomes even more difficult to ascertain the authenticity of a message, okay? So the first step in attack is oftentimes to send a phishing message to a victim. And the message usually contains some sort of link. And the idea is to trick you in clicking on the link so that you can interact with a website that the hacker set up. And the website typically is infected with malware. The website may be set up by a hacker, or it could be a website, what could be a normal website, a good website, but it is taken over by the hacker. It's infected with malware that they put in. And one kind of malware that hackers like to spread is known as keyloggers. Okay, so keyloggers, they are low-level software that is downloaded and installed onto your machines. And their purpose is to record the keystrokes that you type on your machine. And you may wonder, okay, so why would they want to do that? So imagine that you do all sorts of things on your computer. You go onto your banks, you go into your doctor, you go into your email, and so forth and so on. By recording your keystrokes, they can steal your user ID and password to those websites and those applications that you use. And that's one of the ways that they can break into your bank account. Okay, after they have the user ID and password, then they can just log in and pretend to be yourself and do whatever they want. And that's why it's important to use countermeasures such as two-factor authentication, right? That Baru mentioned earlier. When you have two-factor authentication, you will need more than just user ID and password to access the system, right? Because after you type in your user ID and password, that the website or applications that use two-factor authentications will ask you if you want to receive authentication information using your second mean. Usually is either SMS text messaging or a specific authentication app, okay, that is used for the second part of the authentication process. And then you will receive a message. Let's say you use SMS as the second factor for the authentication, right? You will receive a message, and then using that message, there is a code, and you would have to type in the code into the website or the applications in order to fully authenticate yourself. Because the number is changed all the time, that code is changed on a per use basis, that even if a hacker has a user ID and password, in theory, that the person would not have the second authentication factor, right? And still would not be able to log into your account. Now, still, this method is not totally bulletproof either, two-factor authentication, okay? And I'll talk a bit about that on the next slide. So there are a couple of techniques for mitigating all these risks. The first thing you need to do, which is what you're doing right now, actually, is to get to know more about the risks and the mitigation techniques. Education and awareness is the most important part of defending against cybersecurity threats. And this is something that you want to do not only by yourself, but you want to enlist your entire family. Okay, and anytime that you have you read about new attacks that you want to share to your family, hey, I just read about this risk, that I check it out, right? So that your family member would be knowledgeable about the potential risk. One other thing you want to do is take what you have learned today and spread the information to the rest of your family so that they are all aware of the potential risk and ways to mitigate the risk. Education is something that you have to keep on learning more. Okay, it's not a once and done kind of process, because the hackers, the cyber criminals, they are quite crafty and they constantly come up with new ideas and new ways to attack people. And as a result of that, we have to keep our knowledge up to date as well, okay, in order to protect ourselves. Now, going into other ways to mitigate the security risk, strong password, two-factor authentications, that's something that was mentioned earlier. Now, these are still not bulletproof, okay? And I can tell you one way that two-factor authentications can be defeated, and that's by physically hacking into your phone and doing a SIM card takeover, okay? If someone is able to somehow either steal your SIM card, or that person is able to trick your mobile carrier into switching the phone subscription to another phone, that it is possible to defeat two-factor authentications. Okay, that is based on SMS text messaging. And so what you want to be aware of is that one day, if you use your phone and you notice that something is weird, you lost the connection to your mobile network. Okay, if you run into that situations, you want to drop everything and contact your carrier directly and immediately and figure out what is going on, because you may be suffering from a SIM takeover and someone is trying to impersonate yourself, someone who may already have your user ID and password, first authentication factor. They're now trying to get to the second authentication factor by basically taking over your phone. Okay, so be aware of that potential scenario. Other things you want to protect your phone is don't lose it, don't get it stolen. And if it is stolen, then you also have to be very careful, because that means that the criminal would have your second means of authenticating to your account. Now, when it comes to password, it's important to set strong password. At the same time, though, that a password is something that you don't necessarily want to keep the same forever. You want to rotate it, you want to update it from time to time and keep it fresh, because sometimes that when there's security breach, one thing that cyber criminals do is they go after the password system, okay, the so-called password file. In some cases, they will steal the entire set of passwords. And now passwords are typically encrypted. They're supposed to be encrypted in the backend systems. However, there are also techniques for cracking that also. So if you have a password that is stolen, that's out in the code, it can be kind of dangerous. So make it a good habit that from time to time update your password. And definitely, if you hear that there is a security breach at whatever service that you use, change your password immediately. Now, other things that you want to do to protect yourself, make sure that you have the countermeasures in your systems. And that includes investing in malware protection software on your computing devices, includes making sure that you have reasonable amount of protection on your home network using network firewall. Now, one thing is that it's one thing to use network firewall, okay? It's another thing to make sure that you have proper configurations. And one of the common mistakes that people have with their firewall is that they buy it from the stores and they don't change the default password that comes with the device. That's very dangerous, because if you have the default password, and typically those passwords are rather well known, or they can be easy to guess, that the hackers can just hack right into a network, and they can go into your systems and they could install malware, including keylogger in your systems, and then the rest of your countermeasures becomes ineffective. Other things that you want to do, data protections with proper encryptions and permissions, especially for valuable data, especially for data or documents that include your PII, personally identified information, okay, such as social security number, birthdays, and so on. Also, when you share, a lot of people, right, we all use, in fact, this presentation is on Google Drive, and it's very convenient to use cloud-based office automation software and file sharing. The common mistakes a lot of people make is they are very careless in sharing information. They just by default share information to the whole world, even though it may be sensitive data. Okay, so be very judicious in how you share information online. Now, one kind of risk that oftentimes that's coming into play is known as ransomware. Okay, in ransomware, what the hackers do is that they would inject malware into your systems, and then they would use those malware to encrypt your hard drive. And you may ask, okay, why would they want to do that? Well, the reason why they want to do that is that they know, that you may have some valuable information that you want to keep, such as family photos or your finance information or your academic records and so on. They know that you value those informations. So they would encrypt it, and that prevents you from accessing your own information. And then they will ask for a ransom in order to unlock it. The problem is that oftentimes, even if you pay the ransom, they may not unlock the data for you. So to protect yourself, the best means is actually making sure that you have backups. If you have backups, that you have a way to get back to the data. And now you also have to make sure that you protect the backup as well. But having backup is one of the key means to ensure that you can survive cybersecurity breach. I talked about earlier that there's no cybersecurity without physical security. So pay attention, especially protect your computing devices, protect the data, such as portable hard drives that you use to store your personal information. And lastly, practice what I call zero trust security, okay? Now, what is zero trust? This is a terminology that has come up in the cybersecurity industry recently in the last couple of years. And the idea is that you want to take a mentality, you want to have a mentality for trust nobody and nothing when it comes to cybersecurity. By default, if you go to a website that you're not familiar with, that by default assume that it may have malware. Okay, or if you get a message from a stranger that you don't know of, by default, you assume that it can be an attack. Okay, and be very careful in those interactions. Now, these are some examples on what are zero trust security practices. Number one, that do not click on any link, no matter how the link comes, okay, whether it's coming to you via email, messages, a document that is shared. If you do not know the origin of that document, message, or email, you do not trust the source. You don't want to trust any link that are in those document or messages. Okay. Secondly, that do not automatically trust the message that you receive, even if it appears to be from your friends or family members. One of the techniques that cyber criminals like to use is they would like to impersonate your people that are close to you. And this is why you need to protect your social media profile too, by the way, because that's one key ways that they use to case you, to figure out who are your friends and who may be your family members. And then they impersonate those people that are close to you in order to get to you. Because they know that if the message appears to come from someone that you know and someone that you trust, that chances are you're more likely to let your guard down and open a message. And that's why they do it. Related to that, do not accept social media connections from people that you do not know. Now, this is a bit of a tricky one because yeah, sometimes we want to be on social media because we want to get to know more people. And making connections online is one of the ways that we can all use to expand our network. But you just have to be very careful, because once you accept someone into a network, then they may potentially have ways to find out more about you, right? Such as what I just talked about earlier. So be very judicious in what you do on social media and accepting people into a network. Fourth one, do not open files that you don't know about their origins. Similar to what you do not want to do, right, with links, that you do not want to open files, because oftentimes, especially with certain type of files, such as Microsoft Office documents, there may be macros that get executed, and when you open it, it will actually run some code in order to install malware. So you have to be very careful about those files. And last but not least, in order to mitigate part of the risk that I talked about earlier, right, getting messages from people that you know, that are your friends or family members, if you have something that you're not certain about, you got this email with a file from one of your friends, and you're not quite sure about the file, use another channel, okay, such as a phone or maybe SMS, in order to verify the authenticity of the message. Okay, make sure that if it's something that is kind of out of the blue, unexpected, you check with your friend or family member or whoever sent you that message to make sure that that message indeed, or the file indeed, came from the person. Okay, and with that, that concludes my presentation for today. A couple of things that you want to remember, right? Number one, assess the risk. Okay, think about why someone may want to attack you, what they may want to go after, based on your personal situations. And then based on that, think about your potential vulnerabilities. How might the criminals get to you? And then take measures accordingly in order to protect those means of reaching you. Think about security, both in terms of digital cybersecurity as well as your physical security, because you cannot have cybersecurity without physical security. And last, that as much as reasonable, think of zero trust. Do not automatically trust websites, messages, files that you receive, especially if they come from an untrusted source. And with that, that's all I have, and let's have some Q&A.
Thank you, Chung, and thank you, Raghu, for sharing all this information. We will open the floor to question and answer time now. So if any of you would like to maybe raise your hand or say something, unmute yourself, please do. Let me just try to pin both of you here. Okay, pin, and then Chung, pin. Okay, yeah. And then Chung, can you stop the share screen so we could just have you guys?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Is there any questions that people have? You could either raise your hand or unmute yourself. There's somebody just put it in the chat.
So the question is, what security measures should we take while using AI chatbots such as ChatGPT? Well, so there are a couple of things that you want to be aware about these AI chatbots. Number one is that the AI, in a way, is based on pattern matching. Okay, conceptually, you can think of it like that. So the accuracy of the information that that the AI produces is based on the data that is fed to it. So an emerging cybersecurity threat for AI is actually poisoning of the data that is used in machine learning models. And so when you look at data that's generated by these chatbots, that you do have to take a grain of salt sometimes, because it depends on the kind of data that's fed to it, especially if the chatbot is based on a model that is not very big. ChatGPT is pretty good, right? It's based on a humongous model, so it's less prone to this kind of problem. Now, the other thing that's more direct, that's something that you need to seriously consider, is that especially on something like ChatGPT, that when you supply information to it, it sort of becomes the memory of the chatbot. So you don't want to send information that is very sensitive to yourself or to the company that you work for to these chatbots, because you don't know how the information will be stored and may end up be shared with other people or entity.
I believe there's another question in the chat. It says, how do you report identity theft? Someone using your home address or telephone number to get a store or AAA membership rewards programs.
Chung, you want to take that question?
Yeah, you have some you have a slides that talk about that, right?
Exactly. It is in my slide. The FTC is one way you can report it. The law enforcement, then also the IC3 is another way. So that way, right, all the appropriate law enforcement agencies are involved in this. That way they will be able to address it. So there is a very specific slide in my deck, which will talk about this.
Yeah. Another thing that you want to do is if you suffer from an identity threat, one thing you can also do is go to the credit report bureau and lock your profile, so that someone cannot just use that profile and use it to open accounts or get a loan or stuff like that. There may be a cost involved, and it's in a way it can be inconvenient, because when you actually want to do something with your credit file, that you would have to first unlock it. But this is a way that you can protect yourself and mitigate the risk that arise from an identity threat scenario.
Do we have any other questions? If there's a pause and people thinking of questions, I do want to allow a student from the Cybersecurity Club at Irvington to speak for a few minutes about their club. And perhaps if they have questions, they could also ask Chung and Raghu to share their expertise on that. I believe her name is Hia. Are you there,
Yes.
Hia?
Yeah, thank you.
Can you do you want to turn on your screen?
Yeah.
I'll pin you there. Okay. Yeah, okay, so you can talk about the club.
Yeah, okay, let me just share my screen. Can you enable screen sharing, because like great. Okay, so I'm a representative of our school's cybersecurity club, and our fundamental goal is to teach more students about cybersecurity and like how to travel like the vast verse of cybersecurity and like learn more about the realm of it. We have many competitions regarding cybersecurity that we're planning on attending, including the National Cyber League, which just happened, Pico Capture the Flag, and Cyber Patriot. And how we'll help our students is by first teaching them material regarding cybersecurity and how to learn more about it, and helping them register for competitions and making the competitions free, along with answering any questions that they have. Some other events that we'll have are going to be cybersecurity industry guest speakers. Like we have one guest speaker who's the head of Visa's cybersecurity branch coming to talk to us next week, November 14th. And we're going to have many field trips to companies in order to learn about hardware and software systems and how they can be hacked into and the precautions that you can take. We're also sponsored by the National Science Foundation, which means that all competitions that you attend through us will be completely free, which is amazing. And currently our competition, the National Cyber League, 56 Irvington students competed in this competition. It just finished. And we had individual and team games. And this competition is like a highly prestigious competition. So we're incredibly fortunate that we got the chance to sponsor this and allow our students to participate for free. This is some material that we will be covering and some that we have covered regarding cybersecurity. As you can see, shells forensics, Python and C, web exploits, and more. By learning all of these things, we hope to inspire students to learn more about cybersecurity and potentially even have a career in it. So thank you for letting me present. I hope that if you found this interesting, you can tell some of your kids about it so we can spread more information about cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Hia. And let's go back to see if there's any more questions. You can either raise your hand, enter into chat. Actually, I had a question, basically. I know, Chung, you said that maybe our phones can be hacked. Is there like a certain phone that's less hackable, like the Apple versus the Samsung versus any other phones out there?
That's a very interesting question. Is there phones that are less hackable inherently? Well, it's hard to say which one is less hackable, because ultimately that nothing is completely secure. But I would say in general, Apple has put a very strong emphasis on security and is pretty good at providing updates to the software that runs on the phone for a longer period of time, compared to some of the Android-based phone manufacturers. For Android phones, especially for phones that are less expensive, that the manufacturers tend to have shorter periods for supporting the software for the operating systems, Android, that runs on the phone. They provide less patches. And because of that, if there are security vulnerabilities that are identified after you run out of the active support, that your device can be exposed more easily, right, to threats. So for that reason, that I would say more expensive Android phone that have longer software update period or Apple iPhone tend to be safer. The other thing is Apple App Store tends to have more stringent review policies for accepting applications. And that also helps the ecosystems to be more secure as well.
Okay, thanks. I just thought of another one. I know social media wise, our students, well, at least definitely my son, uses Instagram a lot. And, they post pictures, reels, whatever. So it was a good way to educate our kids about, okay, be careful of what kind of picture you post out there. Because if it maybe says some name of your school in the background or so, that's not, I think that's usually something that we're supposed to avoid doing, right? Letting people know location or so. So yeah, is there a way, and Raghu, chime in too, if you have anything about how to educate our kids on, being careful, because they use social media probably a lot and different types, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the one thing I would suggest, right, the sessions like this is very helpful. And here I mentioned that there is a cybersecurity forum within this school as well. So that's another good way. And there's a lot of good materials are available, right? Because we are in an age now, right? We cannot avoid this, right? We have to embrace this. That's a very important thing. But we have to be very mindful and careful about it, right? Typically, from the student's perspective, based on my experience, if you keep preaching them, they will take it in a different way. They are smart, they are good, they are, they know what they are aware of doing. But giving them a little bit tips and tricks here and there, bringing that environment of the safe surfing, the safe using the digital as a culture, that kind of really helps rather than simply preaching them, hey, you have to do this, don't do this. That doesn't work, right? So have that culture of the zero trust, which Chen talk about, right? So once we have that mindset within our community, within our school, within our home, within our office environment, that whole that zero trust, that culture will comes with everybody. Now that I feel that is the way we should approach this.
Yeah, the other day is basically awareness of what can go wrong. And because a lot of times people may do things and they just don't think twice about it, right? Figuring that, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Well, it turns out that a lot of things can happen, right? If you just randomly post a whole life on social media, and those can be things. Some of them are cybersecurity or personal security related. Some of them can impact the student's chance for college and career. That oftentimes is a bigger problem, right, for students, that they post messages that they don't intend to share to the whole world, but once you post on the internet, it's out there, right, and it can hurt your reputation. So one key ways to help them understand is go online and essentially search for cases of what can go wrong. And there are a lot of well-known cases of people putting up messages, posting pictures on Instagram or on Facebook, and it comes back to haunt them. So if you know about those things, that at least you can make a conscious decisions. Go, okay, I better not do it because the threat is real.
Okay, thank you, both of you. I think the only last thing I want to ask both of you is, I know parents may, who something came up and missed a session, because I know a lot of people signed up. They may ask, can I share your slides? So that's
Go ahead. That's
if
the whole point of having a
if
session.
it's shareable, then maybe I could put it on our PTSA website.
Yeah, and also my email address and my LinkedIn.
Yes.
In that my presentation. Feel free to ask
Oh
more
yes, yes.
questions.
Your information, your presentation has your information, right?
Yeah.
Too.
And you are more than welcome to communicate to me using my email or the LinkedIn profile. I'm happy to answer any question.
Okay. Well, in any last call, any other questions? If no more questions, I want to say thank you so much, Ragu. Thank you, Chung, for your time and all the important information that we had tonight. And thank you, everybody else who came. Okay, so have a good night. And I'm going to stop recording and